There is a type of tiredness that does not appear in the body first. It appears in the mind. It's not that physical tiredness after an intense day. It's a quieter tiredness, harder to explain. You wake up feeling like your mental energy is not full. You start tasks and feel like your mind isn't keeping up with your intention. You end the day exhausted, but without having done anything proportional to the level of exhaustion. And then you think, I just need to rest more. It's just a phase. Everyone is like this. But let me tell you something important. Not all tiredness is normal, and not all overhead is visible. We are living in an unprecedented scenario in human history. We have never been exposed to so much stimulation. We have never received so much information per minute. We have never been so charged for constant performance. And the problem isn't just excessive tasks. The problem is continuous excess stimulation without adequate recovery. To understand what's happening to you, whether you're experiencing difficulty focusing, memory failures, irritability, mental sluggishness, we need to understand how the brain really works. The brain was not made for constant alert. For most of human evolution, stress was episodic. A danger arose. The body reacted. The danger passed. The body returned to balance. Today, the danger is not physical. It's psychological. It's the deadline. It's the charge. It's social comparison. It's the fear of not being able to handle it. It's the feeling of always being late. It's the notification that doesn't stop. And the body doesn't differentiate between physical and psychological threats very well. It activates the same system. Sympathetic nervous system, cortisol release, increased alertness. The problem? This system was not designed to be left on all day. When the state of alert becomes permanent, gradual impacts begin. First in focus, then in memory, then the speed of reasoning, then on emotions. The first sign, the fragmentation of attention. You start a task. 5 minutes later, he's already thinking about something else. He picks up his cell phone almost automatically. Open a new tab without realizing it. You read something and need to go back because you didn't absorb it. This is not laziness. It's attentional overload. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for focus, planning, and impulse control, is extremely sensitive to stress and sleep deprivation. When there is excess cortisol for a prolonged period of time, this region loses efficiency. Now add to this the constant consumption of quick stimuli, social media, short videos, notifications, continuous updates. Each notification releases dopamine. And here it is important to understand something. Dopamine is not pleasure. Dopamine is anticipation of reward. It trains your brain to seek out novelty. Over time, deep tasks become less stimulating. Your brain starts to prefer quick stimuli. This reduces your tolerance to prolonged cognitive effort. You haven't lost capacity. You have lost attentional stamina, and resistance can be rebuilt. But first you need to recognize what is happening. Multitasking, the myth of productivity. There is a modern myth that doing several things at once is efficiency. Neuroscientifically, this is not true. The brain cannot perform two complex tasks simultaneously. He switches quickly between them. Each alternation consumes cognitive energy. This constant switching increases mental fatigue. At the end of the day, you feel like you've done a lot, but not much depth. This creates frustration. Frustration creates more stress. Stress further reduces the efficiency of the prefrontal cortex, and the cycle continues. Memory. Why are you forgetting more? The hippocampus is responsible for forming and consolidating memories. It depends on deep sleep to function properly. During deep sleep, the following happens: memory consolidation, neural reorganization, brain metabolic cleansing, lymphatic system. If sleep is fragmented, short, or superficial, the brain does not consolidate well what you experienced during the day. Additionally, chronic stress can impair the functioning of the hippocampus. Result: feeling of mental blank. Forgetting recent things. Cognitive insecurity. You start to doubt yourself, but it is often not a loss of capacity. It's a lack of recovery. Cognitive slow, the most ignored stage. This is the stage that almost no one notices. You keep functioning, but it feels slower. Making small decisions is tiring. Solving simple problems requires more energy. Thinking feels heavy. This happens because the brain goes into economy mode. It reduces speed to preserve energy. This is a survival mechanism, but you interpret it as incompetence, and this starts to affect self-esteem. The emotional impact: when the brake weaks under constant stress, The amygdala becomes more reactive. The prefrontal cortex becomes less efficient. Result? Reactions and more intense emotions. Small conflicts seem like big threats. Irritability increases. Mood swings appear. And here comes something important. A tired brain interprets the world as a threat. And when everything seems threatening, living becomes exhausting. Over-information. The new exhaustion. We consume more information in a day than people consumed in months 200 years ago. The brain needs time to integrate data. Without integration time, saturation occurs. It's like trying to write on an already full board. Nothing is organized. You feel mental confusion, but it's actually excess input without processing. The absence of silence. Moments of boredom activate the so-called default neural network. This network is responsible for creativity, emotional integration, internal planning, self-knowledge. If you fill every minute with digital stimulation, you eliminate this internal reorganization. Without silence, there is no integration. Without integration, there is overhead. The silent burnout. When you still work, but inside, you're exhausted. There is a phase before the collapse. Before classic burnout, before intense anxiety attacks, before extreme exhaustion, there is an intermediate stage that almost no one notices. That's when you're still functioning. You keep working, continues to fulfill responsibilities, continues to deliver results. But the internal cost starts to increase. You need more effort to do what used to come naturally. You feel less pleasure in achievements. You end the day mentally drained. This is what we can call silent burnout. Burnout does not begin with breakdown. It starts with overcompensation. You notice that you are more tired, so you try harder. You realize you are less productive, so you work more hours. You realize that you are dispersed, so you demand more. This compensation increases stress, and continuous stress keeps the nervous system in constant activation. The problem is that the body has limits. When the stress system is activated for a prolonged period of time, the HPA, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, responsible for the hormonal regulation of stress, is damaged. This can lead to changes in cortisol regulation. And when cortisol remains chronically elevated or unregulated, deeper impacts begin. Persistent difficulty concentrating, mood changes, sleep disorders, constant fatigue, reduced motivation. You still function, but it is no longer with the same clarity. Functional anxiety. When you produce but don't rest, there is a type of anxiety that does not paralyze. It drives. You do everything, solve everything, give it all away. But inside there is constant tension. This functional anxiety is socially valued. The person is seen as responsible, productive, committed. But the nervous system never shuts down. The problem is not producing. The problem is producing without alternating with recovery. If the sympathetic system is always dominant, the parasympathetic system, responsible for relaxation and repair, cannot fulfill its role. This compromises emotional regulation, sleep quality, neural regeneration capacity, hormonal stability. Over time. The body begins to signal, first with muscle tension, then with mental fatigue, then with irritability, and often the person only realizes when the collapse happens. Decision fatigue. Why is deciding so tired? Another little discussed impact is decision fatigue. The brain consumes significant energy when making decisions, from small decisions, what to wear, what to eat, what message to respond to complex decisions. When you live in a constantly stimulating environment, your brain is making micro-decisions all the time. Respond or not respond. Open or dismiss notification. Switch tasks or continue. This drains cognitive resources. Over time, you start to avoid decisions, or make impulsive decisions, or you feel exhausted when you need to choose something simple. This is not weakness. It is exhaustion of executive resources. Simplifying decisions reduces cognitive load. Structured routines save mental energy. That's why high-performance people reduce trivial choices. It's not rigidity, it's neural strategy. Dopamine, motivation, and the disinterest cycle. Many people report a loss of motivation, but motivation doesn't disappear out of thin air. It is modulated by dopamine. When you constantly expose yourself to quick rewards, short videos, endless scrolling, instantaneous stimulation, the dopaminergic system can become desensitized. This means that common tasks generate less motivational activation. Activities that were once satisfying seem dull. This creates a dangerous cycle. Less motivation, more search for quick stimulation, less effort tolerance, more demotivation. Regaining dopaminergic sensitivity involves reducing intense stimuli and reintroducing gradual effort. Wow, it's like recalibrating the system. The impact of poorly regulated sleep. Let's delve deeper into sleep. During deep sleep, the following occurs: memory consolidation, emotional regulation, growth hormone production, brain metabolic cleansing. Chronic sleep deprivation reduces the efficiency of the prefrontal cortex and increases the reactivity of the amygdala. This means less emotional control, more reactivity, less focus. Additionally, lack of sleep increases threat perception. Neutral situations start to be interpreted as negative. Sleep is not a passive pause. It is active maintenance of the brain. Without it, the machine starts to fail. The role of the body in mental clarity. The brain does not work in isolation. It depends on the body. A sedentary lifestyle reduces cerebral blood flow. Physical exercise increases BDNF, essential for neuroplasticity. A diet rich in ultra-processed foods can increase systemic inflammation, which affects brain function. Mild dehydration already reduces cognitive performance. You are not just mind. You are an integrated system. Taking care of your body is taking care of your brain. Identity and self-image. The invisible effect. When a person begins to perceive themselves as distracted, slow, or emotionally unstable, this alters their identity. She starts to act according to this narrative, but often this identity was built in a period of overload. It's not a permanent trait. It is a temporary state. Separating state from identity is liberating. You are not your exhaustion phase. The reconstruction phase. How recovery begins. Recovery begins with 3 pillars: stimulus reduction, sleep regulation, reorganization of focus. Stimulus reduction involves turn off non-essential notifications, establish schedules for social media, create periods of silence. Sleep regulation involves fix time to sleep and wake up, blue light reduction at night, dark and silent environment. Reorganization of focus involves deep work, blocks, actual ranges, limited list of daily priorities. Recovery is not instantaneous, it is cumulative. Small changes repeated daily rebuild neural networks. The 30-day plan to restore your mind. Week 1, stimulus reduction. Week 2, sleep consolidation. Week 3, deep focus training. Week 4, emotional integration and decisional clarity. Each week builds to the next. It's not intensity, it's consistency. The most important point: your mind is not broken. She is overwhelmed, and overload cannot be resolved with more charging. It is resolved by adjusting the environment. Sustainable productivity requires recovery. High performance requires balance. Clarity requires silence. How overload changes your perception of reality. There is something that almost no one realizes. Overload doesn't just affect your energy. It affects your interpretation of the world. When the nervous system is constantly activated, the brain goes into vigilance mode. In surveillance mode, the brain prioritizes detecting risk. This means that it becomes noticing more problems than solutions, anticipate more failures than successes, focus more on criticism than praise, not because you have become pessimistic, but because biologically your brain is prioritizing survival. This is the same mechanism that in nature helped our ancestors survive predators. The problem is that today, the predator can be an email, a charge, or a social comparison. If the state of alert is continuous, your worldview begins to distort. You begin to feel that he's always late, never does enough. You need to try harder than everyone else, can't relax. This generates constant tension, and this tension keeps the cycle active. The metaphor of the overheated cell phone. Imagine your brain as a cell phone. If you open dozens of apps at the same time, keep the brightness at maximum, Wi-Fi on, mobile data active, constant notifications, and never close anything, what happens? It starts to heat up. It gets slower. The battery runs out faster, and it eventually crashes. Now imagine that instead of closing apps, you just turn up the brightness and try to use faster. This is what many people do with their brains. They feel slow. They charge more. They feel tired. Increase stimulation with coffee and social media. They feel demotivated. They force productivity. But the problem is not a lack of effort. It's too many tabs open. Overload is too much processing without closure. The role of silence in mental reorganization. There is a brain state called the default neural network. This network is activated when you are not focused on a specific external task. She is responsible for emotional processing, consolidation of experiences, creativity, future planning, self-knowledge. But this network only activates properly when there is a pause. If you fill every minute with stimulation, cell phone, video, music, conversation, information, you drastically reduce recovery time, internal organization. Without reorganization, there is accumulation, and accumulation generates saturation. The mind needs empty space, not to produce, but to integrate. Why do you feel more angry than before? Let's delve deeper into irritability. When the prefrontal cortex is tired and the amygdala is overactivated, an imbalance occurs. The amygdala reacts before full rational analysis. This means that your emotional response happens faster than your logical assessment. You react first, reflect later, and he often regrets it. This pattern increases self-demand, and self-demand increases stress, and stress increases reactivity. It's a closed cycle. Regulating the nervous system is more effective than trying to control emotions by force. Slow breathing, adequate sleep, and reduced stimulation have a direct impact on amygdala reactivity. When motivation goes away, many people report that they no longer feel the same motivation. But motivation depends on three things: available energy, clarity of objective, balanced, dopaminergic system. If you are mentally exhausted, your energy is low. If you are saturated with information, your clarity decreases. If you are exposed to rapid stimuli constantly, your dopamine becomes dysregulated. Result: disinterest. It's not necessarily a lack of purpose, it's a lack of neurochemical balance. Reducing intense stimuli for a few days begins to recalibrate the system. The cycle of invisible self-sabotage overload leads to fatigue, performance drop, self-criticism, more stress, more performance drop. Self-sabotage is often not conscious. It arises when you try to compensate for exhaustion with more effort. But effort without recovery generates wear and tear. It's like accelerating a car with an almost empty tank. How to know if you are at the limit? Some clear signs. You wake up already mentally tired. Small decisions seem difficult. Your focus lasts a few minutes. You avoid cognitively demanding tasks. Your patience has diminished. You feel like you're never really rested. If these signs are frequent, don't ignore them. They are early indicators. The 5-layer reconstruction strategy. Let's structure something deeper now. Layer 1, noise reduction. Eliminate unnecessary stimuli. Layer 2, biological recovery, sleep, natural light, hydration, balanced diet. Layer 3, attention training, progressive focus blocks. Layer 4, emotional rebalancing, breathing, conscious pauses, reflective writing. Layer 5, identity restructuring. Stop defining yourself by the exhaustion phase. Each layer strengthens the next. The importance of consistency. The brain responds to repetition. Small changes maintained for 30 days begin to alter neural patterns. It is not intensity that generates transformation. It's regularity. Sleeping better for 3 days doesn't solve it. Sleeping better for 30 days begins to rebuild. Reducing networks for 2 days does not recalibrate dopamine. Reducing for weeks begins to reorganize sensitivity. The danger of normalizing exhaustion. There is a dangerous social discourse. That's the way it is. Adults are tired. Whoever wants to grow needs to endure. But performance without recovery is not strength. It's accumulated wear and tear. The cost appears later. The turn of the key. The turning point happens when you understand that you are not weak. You are overwhelmed. You haven't lost capacity. You have lost balance. You don't need any more billing, need more strategy. This change in perspective changes behavior. Vision of the future. Who you become when you recover your mind. Imagine recovering. Mental clarity, emotional stability, deep focus, consistent energy, safe decision-making. This is not fantasy. It is a consequence of a regulated environment. The brain is adaptable. It responds to what you repeat. Strong closing. If you've made it this far, it means something inside you recognizes these signs. Difficulty focusing, memory failures, mental slowness, irritability, emotional fluctuation. This is not weakness, it's a sign. And a signal is an opportunity for adjustment. Your mind is not broken. She is asking for reorganization. If this content brought clarity to you, leave a like so that more people understand that mental overload is not cool. It's neurobiology. Subscribe to the channel because here we delve deeper into the mind, behavior, and real recovery strategies. And in the next video, I'm going to put together a detailed, practical, step-by-step mental restoration protocol for anyone who feels like they're constantly operating on edge. Taking care of your mind is not a luxury. It is responsibility with your energy, your relationships, and your future. And recovery begins when you decide to stop ignoring the signs.